Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my Week 11 Top 25 predictions. Holy, we have a lot of good games this week. This week is very exciting, but without saying too much, a like and subscribe and help a comment always helps. Let's get straight into this thing. Purdue at Ohio State. Nothing to be said here. I am sick and tired of taking Purdue. Both of my hideous predictions this year have been because of Purdue's just terrible dog shit nature. And yeah, so fuck them. They're getting destroyed. Miami at Georgia Tech. A lot of people would like to pick an upset here. At least I feel like Miami's been really, really good at. They play the first quarter. It's a tough game, but they always shut it out in the fourth quarter, like third, fourth quarter. And they win high-scoring offensive matchups, and that's exactly what I think is going to happen in this game, especially if Haynes King is not in the game. Last time I watched Georgia Tech, the Haynes King wasn't out there, but I looked it up right here. It says he is hopeful to go on Saturday, but that you never know, man. Sometimes they just be saying shit. They said Cam Rising would be back last year, and he never showed up for the rest of the year, so you never know. But still, even if Haynes King is here, I don't think they have the firepower to outwin or win a shootout against Miami. I don't think they have a strong enough offense to do that, and I don't care if it's on the road. Georgia Tech has fallen apart since the beginning of the year, and to be honest, that Florida State win really gassed them up way more than it should have. Obviously, we know that because Florida State is 1-7 right now, and Georgia Tech barely squeaked out a 3-point win against them. So they're not the best football team ever. They're just all right. Florida at Texas. Oh, you don't know how much I would love to see a Florida upset win at Texas. Now, Florida played Georgia very, very tough, but that's also a big rivalry. Florida could go on the road and give Texas some issues, but Texas does have, if anything, a very solid defense. I mean, Georgia was able to score points against Texas because the Georgia offense is one of the best offenses in the nation if if Carson Beck isn't throwing interceptions. That's why that game was even relatively close, was because Carson Beck just felt like turning the ball over a bunch. If Florida can play their most perfect football on the road, I can see a world in which Florida goes on the road and wins this game. But Texas has a really, really freaking good defense, and it is at Texas. So I've got Texas winning and holding Florida to little points, except I will say, man, you could watch out for this one. This one has like a little bit of scary upset potential on it. I would love to see Florida go on the road and beat Texas. Like, you don't know how much I would love to see that, because watching Texas this year has not been fun. It has been boring and lame, and I don't like this team anymore. So, yeah. Georgia at Ole Miss. This is such a good game, and let's not say too much. You guys know my background pictures are the team that I'm picking. So, I got Ole Miss winning this one. Carson Beck all year long has not been able to figure out his little interception problem. He continues to give games to teams where he just throws too many interceptions that change the game. He has the team. Kirby Smart has the team to win the national championship. Carson Beck just has to dial in, but he's got such a bad interception problem right now. And hitting the road in Ole Miss's biggest game, a game that has been on everybody's bookmark for Ole Miss, and everybody in the nation has been ready for this game. Ole Miss needs to bounce back big time, and they just had a very convincing road win against Arkansas, in which their offense just absolutely ripped apart Arkansas's defense. And Jackson Dart is right back in the Heisman conversation, and a win over Georgia can not only bring up their chances at a college football playoff appearance, maybe even an SEC championship appearance if they get lucky, but it starts with this. There's going to be a lot of passion going into this game, and the same goes for Georgia. They already have a loss to Alabama. So if you're Georgia, this is a must-win. If you're Ole Miss, this is a must-win. This is going to be a good matchup. I feel like this one, you could count on this one being a really good one. But I've got Ole Miss winning it just because I feel like Carson Beck is just going to turn the ball over too much. Ole Miss has had a pretty good defense throughout the year. Their offense has been kind of iffy, but their offense found another gear against Arkansas. And I think that was a huge motivation boost for the fans and for the team that they can perform at the elite level we thought they could. And they needed that right before they go into this Georgia game because they need to carry that into this game, and I think they will. Michigan at Indiana. This game was a sellout the moment Indiana was in the top 25. And Michigan is just, about what I said, about what a lot of people said. I'm not going to give myself credit for saying Michigan was overrated at the start of this year, but we all knew Michigan was not going to be, they were not a top 10 team like that. Michigan at Indiana, blowout. Indiana is thrashing the competition right now, and we're just waiting for that Ohio State-Indiana game. Iowa State at Kansas. Now, this one feels like an obvious, like it's very easy to pick Iowa State to get upset now because Iowa State just got upset. It's very easy to pick on this team after a loss like that in your home stadium. But quite frankly, Kansas has lost so many close and competitive games this year. It is actually ridiculous, and it is very unfortunate because Kansas could have been a very good team this year. They've just lost so many last-second games. Illinois, Kansas. Kansas literally gave the ball away. Kansas gave the ball away 5 total times to Illinois' 1, and they only lost by 6 points. They also lost to UNLV, who with that quarterback was on a hot streak, as well as they turned the ball over 3 times to UNLV's 0. They lost on the road by 4 points to West Virginia, in which this one was actually a split and even game, but it just came down to the wire, and West Virginia was able to score. They were just able to score, and Kansas's most deadly turnover struck at the worst time. It struck right at the end of the game, and Kansas wasn't able to go down the field and score. The TCU game for Kansas, that one was the worst performance, considering TCU turned the ball over 3 times to Kansas's 2. Kansas actually just got outplayed. It was a very close game at the start. It was definitely a well-fought game, but Kansas just lost it at the end there. And TCU took off. That was their one bad game, but TCU is actually one of the better teams in the Big 12 if they could just pull their shit together. They keep on dropping random losses here and there. They're actually one of the better teams in the Big 12, but I just lost Kansas's schedule here because the ESPN app sucks. Oh, and then, of course, ASU. They lost on the road to ASU, which I'm not going to lie, watching this game, ASU kind of had control of this one. There was a lot of bad calls in this one, and ASU turned the ball over twice to Kansas's 0, and ASU still had 500 yards of offense to Kansas 400. ASU was just the better team there. Then they turned around and thrashed Houston before they lost by 2 points to Kansas State in a game they totally should have beat Kansas State. They totally should have beat Kansas State. But it came down to the wire. They went for a 4th and 7 at the Kansas 46. And they just didn't get it. And that was where the game ended. They also fumbled the ball on their side of the field, which gave Kansas State the easy go-ahead field goal. So they dropped that one. All right, enough yapping about all the close games and all the things that have happened, but you get the point. They've lost a lot of close games, whereas Iowa State on the other side of the spectrum until this very last week has won a lot of close games at the very last minute. I think hitting the road and going to Kansas, Iowa State's favored by 3 points, so people agree. I think Kansas is going to win this one. They've got the team. They've got a good quarterback. They've got a great running back. They've got great cornerbacks. We knew this team was going to be good at going into this year, and I still stand by they were going to be good this year, but they just lost so many close games that it just fell apart in their face. It just fell apart in their face, and, you know, the season isn't necessarily over for Kansas. You could still win 4 games, end people's seasons, and go to a bowl game, but one of those games is at BYU, so that's a little difficult, but I don't think Kansas is as bad as the record says at all. And even though I think Iowa State is still one of the better teams in the Big 12, I think Kansas has just been so underrated this year. and lost so many close games. It's all catching up to. It's gonna catch up to a certain team, and Kansas is just gonna pull it together and finally find the flow they should have been in all year. Army at North Texas. Bryson Daly is healthy. You can expect an absolute shootout in this one. Army has played nothing but shootouts all year, and they've dropped so many points. Their only exception was against Air Force, but that was one of the only games they didn't have Bryson Daly in. And then I guess the FAU game, but they still absolutely shut him out. North Texas as well has played in shootout after shootout. I mean, every game they have played in this year, except for their second game of the year, has had a team with 40-plus points in it. And if you're counting, if we're going to count that second game, all right, 35-plus points, 35 or more points. There hasn't been a team with lower points than that. You can expect this one to be an absolute shootout. Yeah, Army has a really good quarterback, I guess, a really good running quarterback. Clemson at Virginia Tech. I forgot to put the ranking next to Clemson. It's always Clemson. It's always Clemson that I mess up on. I don't know why. I forgot to put okay, well, here's how we can change this. I forgot to put a ranking next to Clemson, but it's not like it's going to matter next week because they're not going to be in the top 25. Virginia Tech, man, they dropped a bad one to Syracuse. They dropped a real bad one to Syracuse, and quite frankly, you just shouldn't be losing to a team like Syracuse. I mean, Syracuse hasn't been the worst thing ever this year, and they definitely do have a home field advantage, if anything. But Virginia Tech was up 14-3 going into halftime. They were up 21-10 at a point. They had the leads. They just let Syracuse climb all the way back in it. And yeah, when you fumble the ball in overtime and you just give the game away on a fumble, that's what's going to happen. But Virginia Tech has lost countless close games. That Hail Mary should have been caught against Miami. They dropped one to Rutgers early in the year when Rutgers was a really good team. And then they lost in overtime on the road at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's in the top 25. So outside of that, their worst loss was against Syracuse. That's probably still worse than the Rutgers loss. No, the Rutgers loss now looks like their worst loss. But at the start of the year, that was a respectable loss. Virginia Tech is just like Kansas. They have been on the bad side of the ball sometimes. They've lost countless close games this year. And Clemson just got embarrassed at home by Louisville. Virginia Tech gets the home field. This is a big-time matchup for both of these teams. I'm taking Virginia Tech to win this one and not Clemson out of the top 25. That's totally why I didn't put a ranking there as well, was because I was anticipating this. Colorado at Texas Tech. Iowa State, it's easy to pick the upset because they just lost. Now, Texas Tech, it's easy to pick the upset because they just won. But Texas Tech is getting, severely slept on. They have been slept on all year long. It is absurd to me that this Iowa State team, why do I keep saying Iowa State? Texas Tech team has not even come close to the top 25. They seriously have not come even close to the top 25, even though they were they were 5-1 at a point. They were 5-1 with respectable wins against Cincinnati and ASU. And even at the time, it looked like a road win against Arizona was good because Arizona was sure as hell receiving votes to be ranked. But they didn't. And then that loss to Baylor was what shut things down. Then a game they absolutely blew against TCU. They totally should have won that. They get their bounce back and they beat Iowa State, and they're still receiving less votes than ASU to be ranked, which is absurd. I am an ASU fan. Of course, you guys know that. I think ASU is pretty good, but Texas Tech beat ASU and pretty handily. The 8-point final score is actually not as truthful as it is. ASU scored a touchdown with 2 minutes left to make that game close, it was 16-30. They kind of owned that game, man. They kind of owned us. But now you go into this game, Colorado has been on a nice hot streak. But who has the bigger win? Texas Tech on the road against Iowa State, they don't even have the win. They actually lost at home to Kansas State. I mean, Baylor barely lost that game to Colorado. It took a Hail Mary. Colorado got thrashed by Nebraska. And I mean, yeah, they've dominated a lot of the competition, and they are a pretty good team. But Texas Tech is getting seriously slept on. I think we can expect an offensive matchup because obviously Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter. There's really good defense or offenses, but same with Texas Tech. And I mean, seriously, Texas Tech is being so viciously slept on right now. Texas Tech can win out. And guys, not a lot of people are realizing that Texas Tech could go to the Big 12 championship. If they beat Colorado here, they're gonna take Colorado's spot at like number 3. They're gonna take Colorado's spot there, and then they play at Oklahoma State and they host West Virginia. Those are 2 games they can easily win. Kansas State still has to play ASU, Cincinnati, and Iowa State. There's 1,000% a loss in there, and Iowa State still has to play at Kansas, host Cincinnati, at Utah, and Kansas State. Now, the Kansas State-Iowa State game is situational, but I think they could still both lose games that aren't that game. BYU will probably go undefeated, except the road game at ASU could be tough. But Texas Tech has the ability to win out and go to the Big 12 championship, dude. I could totally see it happening, and then they would be the 4 seed, which would be fucking hilarious. But, yeah. I could totally see it happening. Texas Tech has been slept on all year, man. Now, after all, they turned the ball over like 7 or 8 times against Washington State, and they didn't have their starting running back, who's been a star at Texas Tech. They didn't even have him, and they lost to that Washington State team, who's in the top 25 right now with 1 loss, and that's to Boise State, who's number 12. Texas Tech, give them some damn respect, dude. They are being slept on so hard right now. South Carolina at Vanderbilt. I'm actually, this isn't South Carolina's background, is it? This is still Texas A&M. Oopsies. I thought I picked South Carolina, so I left the background the same. Just pretend this is South Carolina's background. But I'm actually going to take South Carolina to go on the road and beat Vanderbilt. I like Vanderbilt, and I like Diego Pavia, and I think they're a good football team over there, obviously. They've got a pretty big win over Alabama football, but, you know, they are a 3-loss team with a loss to Missouri on the road and a well-fought game against Texas. And then what's their other loss? Where's their 3rd loss? Texas, Missouri. Oh, and then the Georgia State loss, which is just terrible. I think they're a good team. I think Diego Pavia is a good quarterback. But South Carolina has proven their ability to actually hit the road and perform very, very well. Their absolute domination over Oklahoma on the road. Their game that they should have beat Alabama on the road. And their domination over Kentucky on the road. I think, actually, you look at it, I think they're undefeated on the road. No, they're 1 loss on the road. Oh, because they lost to Alabama. They could be undefeated on the road. They're a pretty good road team. And, I mean, you really look at, outside of the Ole Miss loss, you look at South Carolina, a 2-point loss to Alabama and a 3-point loss to LSU that literally were taken away from them. They could be a 1-loss team. Vanderbilt struggled against Texas and lost. That Alabama game, Alabama literally rocked their shit offensively. I mean, 18 minutes of possession time, you score 35 points. Vanderbilt just owned the time of possession game, and Jalen Milroe threw bad interceptions, and Vanderbilt had the momentum. I think South Carolina is going to go on the road and beat Vanderbilt. Maryland at Oregon. Really nothing to be said here. Yeah. Mississippi State at Tennessee. Yeah, really nothing to be said here. Mississippi State is starting to find something offensively, but Tennessee's got a really good defense, and they're at home. FSU at Notre Dame. Yeah. They're gonna get shut out. Bama at LSU. There we go. A good game. Bama at LSU. All right. This one is really up in the air. But quite frankly, this rivalry is serious, and it's at LSU. You cannot argue with LSU's home stadium right now. LSU's home stadium has really been the highlight of their year, especially in that game against Ole Miss, where it really, I mean, it's hard to play in an environment like that. LSU's losses have all been like road losses. They should have lost to South Carolina. Got dominated by the backup at Texas A&M. USC LSU was a neutral site. Those are LSU's. Oh, I'm sorry. I think I said an extra game in there. All right, they got dominated at Texas A&M and they lost in a neutral site. Oh no, I said they should have lost to South Carolina. I thought I said they lost to Ole Miss. My bad. They're still a 2-loss team. Their quarterback, I did not have much faith in him going into this year, but he's actually, I had a lisp. I was this year, but he actually is performing better. Quarterback who turns the ball over more is actually LSU's quarterback. So you could see these guys slinging picks, but I actually think these quarterbacks are going to dial in for this game. This is a game both teams know they have to win. Like Alabama, already a 2-loss team in the conference. LSU still a 1-loss team in the conference, but Alabama's trying to make they're out of the SEC championship, in my opinion. I don't think there's a way Alabama can get in. They've already taken their 2 losses, and they don't have any other games except for this one in which they can knock teams out. But LSU is still like one of the 6 1-loss teams in the conference. No, one of the 5. And Alabama is underneath Vanderbilt. Alabama, and Vanderbilt's a 2-loss team in the conference. I think Bama is trying to fight for, if anything, one of the 5 through 12 seeds. They're trying to fight for one of those, and you have to win this one pretty much and then win out the rest of the year to get that done. But I'm taking LSU. I haven't taken LSU all year. I've picked against them all year. But they did impress me with that Ole Miss win. They definitely impressed me. I don't blame them for losing that game against Texas A&M because that's just a freshman game. There's really no way to when a freshman comes in and takes the throne and makes a really big play at the start, and you're at home with all those hundreds of thousands of A&M fans, you're making plays and stuff. There is nothing stopping a freshman with potential, and when he's in the passion like that. But the moment he hits a hostile environment, he folds and they get dominated by South Carolina. LSU gets that lovely home environment, and they can just completely throw that A&M game back in the past with a big win here. And I think it'll be close, but I think LSU's got it. Washington at Penn State. Oh, I accidentally double-clicked. Give me Penn State. Big time. Nevada at Boise State. This one could be a bit more defensive, but give me Boise State big. Virginia at Pitt. This one actually, I've been talking about Virginia all year, trying to get people to pay attention to them, but ultimately they've fallen apart. They had their opportunity. They got a big win over Boston College. They barely lost to Louisville. Played tough at Clemson, but can't expect them to do anything there. And then they just got absolutely killed by North Carolina in Virginia's home stadium, and it wasn't even close. They just got absolutely dominated, but Pitt also just got dominated, so both of these teams are in a bounce-back scenario, but it's at Pitt. Give me Pitt by 7 in a close one. BYU at Utah. I'll give Utah the benefit of the doubt. This is a big, fat rivalry, and this is their opportunity to bounce back. I don't think they'll let it go lightly, but I think BYU is the better team here. They're really, really good. Utah State at Washington State, our last game of the week. This one is going to be an absolute offensive shootout. Utah State has no defense, and they're kind of stinky. And that is our last game of the week. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys are excited for this week of football. But, yeah, that's all for me. Like and subscribe, help, a comment always helps. Look at this tire. Look at this giant old tire right on the tee. Whatever. Oh, and this stuff also. Whatever. Like and subscribe, help, a comment always says that's all for me. Adios.